Welcome to The American Story. Stories about all the things that make America the country we know and love. Thank you for subscribing to the American Story podcast on your favorite podcast app, leaving a 5-star review on that app, and sharing these stories with family, friends, and neighbors. Thanks to you, we are reaching more listeners every week. This is Chris Flannery with the Claremont Institute. I call this one The Federalist. New York, early fall, 1787. A new constitution for America had miraculously come forth from the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia after 4 months of intense argument and careful compromise during a historic summer. But it would not become the basis of a new federal government until ratified by 9 of the 13 states. Criticism from opponents of the Constitution began pouring into the public press even before the Constitution was made public. These opponents would come to be called anti-federalists. Alexander Hamilton, who had been a delegate from New York to the Constitutional Convention, recruited fellow New Yorker John Jay and fellow convention delegate James Madison from Virginia to answer the anti-federalist criticism. Beginning in October and continuing through May of the following year, under the pseudonym Publius, the three of them, mainly Hamilton and Madison, published 85 essays in New York newspapers defending and explaining the proposed Constitution. Even before they were all published in newspapers, the essays were gathered in 2 volumes, giving them a more permanent form while their urgent immediate purpose, to secure ratification of the Constitution, still hung in the balance. The title given to the 2-volume work was The Federalist. It's usually hard to know in the midst of working for urgent immediate purposes whether your efforts possess any enduring qualities. If you achieve your immediate ends, in this case securing ratification of the Constitution, your efforts can be measured by what they accomplished, even if they contain no treasures for the ages. In truth, no one could tell at the time whether the essays by the mystery author Publius had any effect in helping to get the Constitution ratified. But even before the new government was formed under the ratified Constitution, no less a judge than George Washington found in these essays something of more than passing interest. Long after the transient circumstances of America's constitutional crisis have disappeared, he wrote, "The Federalist will merit the notice of posterity, because in it are candidly and ably discussed the principles of freedom and the topics of government which will always be interesting to mankind." Around the same time, Thomas Jefferson expressed the same judgment. The Federalist, he wrote, was the best commentary on the principles of government which ever was written. And his respect for the Federalist endured to the end of his life. Even through the party struggles of the 1790s and the Revolution of 1800, during which he and Hamilton were leaders of political parties, each of which accused the other of being a traitor to the American Revolution. In the course of Jefferson's last great life's work, the establishment of the University of Virginia, when recommending readings for students in the principles of government, he listed the Federalist as one of the best guides to the distinctive principles of the United States and an authority on the genuine meaning of the Constitution. So whatever effect the efforts of the authors of the Federalist had on their immediate purpose, the best possible judges at the time thought their work contained treasures for the ages. But the world offers no guarantee that merit will receive the regard it deserves. Philosophers greater than Plato, composers greater than Bach, might live and die unnoticed or be dismissed as eccentrics. After the crisis of the founding, the Federalist moldered for more than a century in the archives of near oblivion. Then in the 20th century, things picked up. Fast. Charles Beard, one of the most influential American historians of the early 20th century, echoed Jefferson, writing that the Federalist was the most instructive work in political science ever written in the United States, and that it ranks first in the world's literature of political science. Midway through the second half of the 20th century, editions of the Federalist began selling, if not like hotcakes, at least like good cannoli. Selections from the Federalist were included in high school American government textbooks. The whole collection of 85 essays became a standard reading assignment in college political science and history courses. Serious scholarly books and articles were written on the essays, especially what became the most famous of them, Federalist No. 10 by James Madison. Among American historians and political scientists, there was a broad consensus that the Federalist represented the single most authoritative and comprehensive articulation of the political thought of the American founding, and was the classic explanation of the provisions and purposes of our Constitution. The editor of the most widely used modern edition of the Federalist went so far as to call it the most important work in political science that has ever been written, or is ever likely to be written, in the United States. Young and upcoming students of politics should take that not as an insult, but a challenge. As the Federalist approaches the 234th anniversary of its first appearance, it seems safe to say George Washington and Thomas Jefferson were right. It contains wisdom for the ages, about American political principles and institutions, and about politics and the human condition generally. But these times, more than most, teach us with urgency that it is up to us, as it was up to Publius, to do our best, to bring the wisdom of the ages to bear on our circumstances and our crisis, right now. Thanks for being part of the American Story. This is Chris Flannery with the Claremont Institute. I encourage you to visit our website, theamericanstorypodcast.org, to learn more about these stories and how you might support them. That's theamericanstorypodcast.org.